So now we're going to take a few questions if we have any. I'm pretty sure that we will have some. So is anyone really eager to ask anything to either Anne-Laure or Egle about the presentations they've given?
There's a hand behind you.
Doris?
Thank you. Every now and then the sort of concept of a European citizen is sort of floating about on various medium. I can't actually sort of see how that could be possible. I'm not sure if this was something sort of you'd be able to cover, but as far as I understand, you've got sort of all member states' nationalities, and then the EU is like a group of all the member states. But how you could have a European citizenship, I don't quite understand. Is it possible or not?
So the law says if you have a passport of one member state, you're automatically a citizen of the European Union. The question is, what does that mean? Theoretically, there are some people thinking about, well, it means anything. We can travel or get rights even if we don't travel, because EU rights are hindered once you cross the border. If you haven't crossed the border, you don't really benefit directly, because most of the EU citizenships are related to your ability to move. And that implies, again, social equality, because you have cases where people, there was a lady, for example, she tried to invite a fiancé from Jamaica to join her in the UK. She's never worked and she was on welfare benefits. So the lawyer said, well, you have a British passport, but you have Irish roots. Let's get you an Irish passport. So that's what she did. But because she never traveled anywhere outside the UK, it was ruled that she doesn't benefit from EU rights, even though she has a different passport. So you have...
This is what it means to exercise your treaty rights.
Exactly.
That's what's behind that sentence.
Does that answer your question, sorry? In a little bit way.
I think not really. I think it was sort of more for British people saying, okay, if Brexit does happen, would that be a way of still being a European citizen?
Yeah.
Technically, no, but this is the guy, Peter Ostad's idea of, I have to take it with a pinch of salt, but I think, Guy Verhofstadt, that's his latest baby, you put it this way. It's very political. This is what I keep hearing is that there's no basis in law for it. It's like a nice concept of EU citizenship, but there's doesn't have any legal teeth.
Yeah, the law says if you have a passport of EU member state, then you are also EU citizen.
Yeah, and that's
so if UK is no longer a member, then you don't have a passport of EU member state.
One issue that you talked about is that for many issues it's residence that matters. So if you're a resident in Britain, you won't be able to exercise your EU rights and such. Are people able to be resident in two countries? Would it be worthwhile people, for instance, establishing residence in the EU country as well as Britain? Because I know that you can officially be residents if you've got a place to live in two countries, for instance.
Frontier workers, that what comes to mind. So
yes.
People who live on the border. So maybe UK Irish border for this country, maybe.
I guess once you've got your permanent residency status, you then can leave for 2 years, but you have to come back within those 2 years.
Give an example. I'm British, but I've also now taken German nationality. But my wife's Polish. We've got a place we can live. We live in Poland. We go there twice a year. We could keep residence card for Poland and also have residence in Britain. Would we then be able to maintain the rights which you get from residence in the other EU country? Then would EU citizens be advised to do that?
So if you have a card that says you're a permanent resident in another country, then
as well,
that card expires at some point.
Yeah,
because each country, well,
but if you've got somewhere to live there, you can renew it, prolong it.
Well, I think it will depend on what's in the
Continuous
withdrawal
residence.
Yeah. And also it will very much depend on what's in the withdrawal agreement, because the situation of British nationals living in the EU is set to change dramatically.
No, but yes, I realise
So
that.
therefore,
I was thinking of EU
what
nationals as well.
The permanent residence card you can
Yeah.
have now in Poland, Spain, etc. That will change, because what the December agreement has done is not that it's changing the relationship between the UK and I was going to say the EU. It's broader than that. It will have an impact. It basically, the agreement is saying now, member states, you have two choices when you deal with EU citizens at large. You can either ask them to do the equivalent of a PR card, so that's the declaratory process, just to confirm that you have the right to live here or there, or you can do settled status, which is therefore it could be that the country you choose, your second country you choose to live in, if it does constitutive the more the settled status model, that's going to make things quite potentially difficult. Again, the devil is in the details, so until we've got the content of what's going to be in the withdrawal agreement, we don't know.
You
I'm
can do
talking
it,
more
but
about
it's-
EU citizens in Britain rather than British citizens. I think British citizens are scattered, basically.
We
I mean, but I'm thinking about EU citizens who also have a right to live in their own country.
Yeah, that's a bit of a complicated
Yes,
life. I
okay.
just like to be able to stay in one country.
It's a nice change from people trying their very best to be non-residents, so they don't have to
But there are two things. I think you can be resident for tax purposes
This is-
in one
that's
country
different,
and
yeah.
resident as a permanent resident of the
Yeah.
country. So that's, as I say, frontier workers would be something you might want to have a look, because they normally live in one country but they work with jobs across the border. So there's lots of.
But for instance, if you're resident in Britain, you can be living abroad but be resident in Britain because you have accommodation available for your use.
That depends what the resident in Britain is defined by the British law.
Yeah, I'm not talking about tax, I'm talking about...
So wouldn't that be up to
Still-
the individual countries like Poland? I think like Cyprus and Estonia are thinking of something along these lines.
I was just thinking Cyprus already has a thing where you can buy citizenship of Cyprus if you invest. It's something like 1 or 2 million in businesses.
Places like that, yeah.
What I do find the interesting or sad thing about this, I'm honestly gutted for the friends of my children, because they will not have that opportunity to go to another university, or they may not, hopefully they will, but they may not, they've lost that. But I'm also gutted by the statistics that come out when you ask people, should you be able to move to another country and have another job there and study there? And there's the discrepancy between people who think that they should, but other people shouldn't. It's massive. I mean, this whole thing can easily be sorted by just having, a reciprocated rights, even post-Brexit. But
Yeah, but there's no. Our lawyers have looked into this, and the issue of reciprocity cannot really apply totally, because things are set to change. So some issues around reciprocity, their words mean that there are going to have to be some kind of accommodation. It's not going to be like this, that. This can't be just a mirror image exactly, because things are set to change.
And the things are different already. There are certain immigration agreements in current EU law where the UK is not party to those agreements. So again, that's regulation where we're not party to, and so that might regulate differently afterwards.
Yeah.
But one other argument that is being said in this context is that citizens from third countries are being treated so badly. I mean, you may have heard about Skype families where the British partner doesn't earn enough money in order to, bring to this country. They're lawfully wedded husband or wife and have children. And one of the arguments that I was reading on Twitter again, I spent way too much time on Twitter, but I was reading on Twitter again, but after we leave the EU, that will be better. And, how do you tackle that? You think, well, what kind of world are you living? Have you not paid any attention to what's happened in the last 10, 15 years? That is not going to happen. I mean, that is an absolute abomination that children can't live with both their parents, and that people have to make that choice between, oh, actually the only way to survive is for me to live here and for the mother of my child to live in another country. I mean, I can't say anything other than it's just terrible and it's not going to improve, I think.
What's the deal about CSI, Comprehensive Sickness Insurance?
Well,
because it's my understanding that nothing is set in stone. Nothing is written in stone. That the government has scrapped it or not. I don't believe anything they say. They haven't, have they?
If you're applying for PR, still apply. What they intend to do is to scrap it for settled status. It's like giving a bone to a dog, basically. There's a way of enticing people to apply for settled status because it is so much nicer and so much lighter to do. The bottom line is that CSI is illegal. There's still an infringement procedure going on. The EU is sitting on the evidence, which is really crap. Every time we go to the Commission saying, when are you going to release the evidence? Because that will really help, argue the point. But it shows that if they're prepared to scrap it for settled status, that they recognise that it is illegal.
Lack of humility, isn't it? Yeah.
At the moment, they say, well, for PR, if you want to apply for PR, that's the deal. You have to go through all the usual business.
Because people are still being declined, permanent residency for not having comprehensive sickness insurance. Yes. But yet, this is still being argued, on Facebook in many different forums that, it's okay now, the government, is saying, it's not going to be required anymore. And I'm hearing different versions all the time because it's still a requirement for PR, but it's just a rumour that for settled status it might not be required.
But there's a lot of things that's coming out of the government, the Home Office and DEXU. They're saying a lot of things, but until it's policy, don't trust it. Until it's in black and white somewhere, don't trust it.
Another issue on that is the issue about what constitutes a permanent job. The number of hours that you have to do, which again, the disagreement between the law as implied by the EU. The British apply a minimum salary or a minimum of hours.
Quite. It's the primary earnings threshold, which is currently £157 a week before tax. This is what the government uses as a benchmark.
There was a case in the Netherlands where, in fact, it doesn't matter how long, as long as it's permanent.
But the Netherlands does what it wants, whereas the UK does something else.
Yes, that's right. Which is
it's kind of more or less the same idea, but there is a certain level of flexibility between member states can do certain things. But again, there's nothing. If you look at it, it's Article 717
directive.
Yeah, of the directive. That there's nothing in there that says that you have to earn a certain minimum amount. At all. The minimum income thing, it doesn't exist.
It's purely British application.
It's a pretty British thing.
I thought there was a case against the EU against that, isn't there, or not?
I haven't heard.
There have been challenges in academic debates that this is illegal, this requirement. But the directive does leave some flexibility because the definition of worker is not provided in law. It's provided by the Court of Justice, different cases. And the Court of Justice did say that, yes, part-time work counts as long as it's genuine and effective economic activity. What is genuine and effective? 2 hours a week, genuine effective?
That's why they used the 150.
So the government decided, right, we count if it's genuine effective if you meet the threshold. That's how they interpreted this phrase.
Which means I don't meet the criteria. Huh. Bring me oranges when I'm in detention, will you?
Do you not meet the criteria?
No, I've been here nearly 32 years.
Same as me, yeah. I don't meet the criteria either. Yeah. Same as me, I've been here 31 years.
There's no point in me applying for PR one case.
Yeah. Is that because of CSI mainly?
No. The income potential, genuine effective, and rest of it.
So that's the legally resident.
Yes, so, but for those who are in the category of self-sufficient, Again, I still get confused here because self-sufficient people, well, they don't need to work effectively. They don't need to work, but the Home Office is saying, well, you're not earning anything, so you are unworthy migrant. Is that what's it saying?
Not quite. If you got CSI and you can show you got an income from, your pension, or maybe your partner, then you're covered.
If we get CSI, but I don't know how to get.
CSI.
I don't know how to get
provide
that.
evidence of capital at one stage. Is that gone? Savings.
Pardon?
You could provide evidence of your savings.
Yeah,
at one
I
stage. Is
think
that gone?
that works. No, if you nothing's changed as far as PR is concerned. That's the bottom line. And this is why we're saying, look, government, if you say you're prepared to do a so-called light touch system for settled states, why don't you change the current system for PR and turn PR into really truly light touch system? Why do you have to make it so complicated? It's the most complicated member state as far as PR is concerned. After I presented in the House of Commons Select Committee with my suitcase, they came back to me and said, well, what's going on in the other member states? And they gave us about a week to do a bit of scoping, so did that. It's on the website, and you can look at it, the Excel spreadsheet. And the UK is the most complex, most expensive. France, which is the as I call it, the grandfather of bureaucracy, doesn't even have a form. You can apply with just a letter, and that's it.
On this point, sorry, this is not a very good time to stop, but we'll take a little break because I think Egle has to leave us nowish.